This episode has been brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for your continued support of the Careers in STEM streaming series.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Careers in STEM series. We are FRC Team 226 Hammerheads from Troy, Michigan, consisting of over 100 high school students from Troy and Athens High School. This is a bi-weekly show occurring on the first and third Thursdays of every month. For this series, we'll have a 30-minute interview period and then a short Q&A at the end for audience questions. My name is Shaun Dantas, and I am a junior at Athens High School.
My name is Sonnet, and I am a sophomore at Troy High School.
Our guest today is Srinivas Simhan. Srini graduated from Troy High in 2014 and majored in computer science at the University of Michigan in Dearborn. He has had extensive involvement with FRC and FIRST in Michigan and currently works as a system analyst at the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. So, hi Srini. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, so I think you covered a lot of the bases right there in that introduction. I am a system analyst that works at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. I also predominantly work with Java and Salesforce. Java in the past, predominantly Salesforce now. In addition to that, I am a STEM teacher at the Robot Garage, located in Birmingham and Rochester. I serve as the K-12 outreach chair at the University of Michigan Dearborn's Engineering Alumni Association and Advisory Council. In addition to that, I work with the Troy Youth Robotics Board, which is collaborating with the school district to enhance student opportunities in the coming years. And then, as most of you know, I was a student on 226 from 2010, then president in 2014, and then currently I'm an alumni and mentor of the team.
That sounds great. So what was your first experience with robotics, and did you start before high school?
I actually started before high school. So back in the day with Michigan, FTC wasn't necessarily a fundamentally strong program until about 2016. So when I was involved, it was FLL for the middle school level. So I started off with FLL in 7th grade, and then 8th grade, we actually, the team that was on the Robo Rockets, we won state championships and got to participate in Atlanta at World Championships. And so that's kind of where I started off with robotics. And then from there, we got to work with teams like FRC Team 1, the Juggernauts, over at the Oakland Schools Technical Campus, and obviously with 226 as a home Troy team.
So when did you start working with 226?
So I started working with 226 about middle of the fall semester of 2010. So I actually played soccer when I came into high school. So the first couple months were very heavy in terms of soccer practice and everything that was going on. But knowing that coming onto 226, which back then was a 20, 30 student team, I had a lot of people that I could look up to and a lot of people that were interested in getting and helping me get involved, which really helped with me getting a lot of hands-on experience going into, the next 4 years of my robotics career while I was in high school.
So you obviously spent a lot of time with 226 during your high school years and even now. So could you tell us a little bit more about your time on the team and what your most memorable moment was?
So my time on the team was pretty expansive. So I had a lot of opportunities in order to work with different assets of the team and aspects of the team. So I got to get involved with build. In my freshman year, I got to work on building the mini bot with Jeff Burns, who was one of our GM mentors at the time. And from there, I got to work on fundraising, got to do presentations, do a lot of community outreach, help set up our team's care company drives so that we would go to, Schroeder, Bemis, and Costello and Martel at the time and set up presentations over the summer. So a lot of that was what I got involved with on the team when I was on the team. Got the opportunity my senior year to be on drive team and also during my sophomore year as well. So that was really cool. And then I think my most memorable experience was my first time that I was at the shop at GM at the Tech Center in Warren. So Jason Joy, who's another GM mentor, actually showed me I remember this experience because I remember him walking me up to the mill and pointing at the mill and being like, "Do you know what this is?" And from there, basically I turned into being the person that went to, whenever things needed to be milled, it was either on there or getting to work on the lathe. And those were a lot of experiences that Jason and Jeff really helped provide at that time.
So how does it feel to see where 226 is now? We've grown a lot as a team, I'd say, because we have a lot more members. But what was your experience seeing the team grow?
So I got to see the team grow from a 30 student team to about a 100 student team to the behemoth that it is now in Troy. And I am fairly pleased with how it's grown over the years. So I think when I was on the team, there was a lot of, it was very, very heavily student led. And that meant that the structure was changing every year, the engagement was changing every year. Our mentors were very open to the opportunity, to the understanding that we were a very student led team. So things from CAD to things in coding to setting up any of the community outreach programs to budgeting and scheduling and even getting the bus schedule so that we could go to competitions and stuff. All of that was handled by students at the time. And over the years, some of those responsibilities have moved over to mentors that have helped with assistant with project management, which from that experience, a lot of the structure has also changed. So I think 226 has gotten better in that aspect because they're able to focus on more coding, expanding on coding, working with new technologies, working on projects that they would like to work on while working with professional mentors through the fields so that they can really excel in their career and potentially even get certifications and scholarships going into college.
Yeah, so your time with 226 seems pretty great, especially since you've been able to see us grow so much. So I know you mentioned talking a little bit about playing soccer earlier. So aside from 226, what other activities did you do in high school?
So outside of 226, I played soccer for a very short time, but other than that, I was heavily involved with marching band. So that was a lot of my experience, under the tutelage of Brian Nutting. So that was definitely a lot of time that went into that between marching band, between regular, concert band, and then also being involved with robotics is almost, as you guys know, it's almost a full-time thing. After you're out of class, you're probably at robotics or you're working with the team or you're working with different aspects of the team to further whatever skills that you had. So that was where a lot of my time went. Eco Club was also a really cool club that I was involved with I think Mr. Zinda was in charge at the time of that. So that was what I got involved with when I was in school.
So obviously it's really difficult picking a college and a major, and that's what the entirety of high school builds up. So how did your extracurriculars and your time on 226, how did that help you pick a major? Probably because that's one of the most difficult decisions you could do.
So I think even joining high school, I always knew I wanted to do engineering, but I wasn't really sure what type of engineering. I was very drawn to mechanical because I really liked the CAD experience, but I also wanted to know how to code and I wanted to get into coding. And so it was in that sense, it was difficult to understand how exactly I wanted to pick a major. So actually going into college, I started off as an electrical and computer engineering major, so as a double major, and I did that for 3 years, and a few college experiences happened along the way, and I eventually switched to computer science because I found that I was a lot more passionate about my work with computer science. I had a lot of mentors at Dearborn during my time at U of M Dearborn that really inspired me and really got me set on the path of, hey, you have a passion for engineering, you have a passion for electrical, computer engineering, and CAD, but you're also good at computer science. So why not stick with that and focus and own that skill while you're moving forward with your career?
That sounds great. So, how is UM Dearborn a little bit different than at UM Ann Arbor, and how did that affect your learning experience?
So UM Dearborn is actually it's a branch school off of the Ann Arbor campus, but it's also entirely in the sense it's its own campus and it has its own identity. It's very closely related with the Ford Motor Company and the surrounding areas, and closely works with a lot of businesses that are within the Detroit area. So we had a lot more Metro Detroit experience and impact and engagement when it comes to a lot of the things that we did on campus. So during my time on campus, I worked considerable amount of jobs. So I got to start a peer mentor program for mental health support. I worked on creating a campus website called Victor's Link, which helped get students engaged on campus with other student organizations. And then I was also involved with a lot of student organizations on campus and served on e-boards for them and help structure them and help work with them to potentially grow them from a few members to multiple members. And so over the years, my involvement at Dearborn, when we look at it compared to Ann Arbor, I had a lot more one-on-one time with professors. It costs a lot less for me to be stressed about my career and about my job. And it was a lot easier for me to look at potential internship opportunities and collaborations in the community because it was a commuter campus and it did provide that outlet that I could get off campus. And if I wanted to go intern at DTE or Continental while taking classes, I could do that. Versus with a larger universities, a lot of times it's kind of hard to get off campus without access to a car, or access to those research opportunities that may be off campus, or internship opportunities that are off campus. But with how Dearborn is set up, I could probably walk maybe 10 minutes and reach like a company that I could probably intern at Dearborn. I think that was really cool because it was heavily integrated with how the Metro Detroit community and the local Dearborn community have been growing, especially in the last few years here.
So you were talking about internships and switching majors. So what was the biggest difference between electrical and computer engineering and computer science that made you switch? And how did that affect you finding internships or other work experience?
Realistically, I think that I love the ECE aspect. When I was a electrical and computer engineering major, we call it ECE over at Dearborn. I was actually minoring in computer science, so I always knew that I wanted to go have the hardware background that ECE like provided, but I wanted to get a little bit more into the software side of things. So knowing that I wanted to maybe be a control systems engineer, or at the time, like my dream job was, working at SpaceX and working at Tesla, because those were like the up and coming companies when I started college. And so, yeah, so a lot of that experience, the reason I went into change kind of came to the point with talking to professors, and I was working on campus as a tutor as well. So I was teaching a lot of students and working through it and setting up support groups and study groups on campus. And in the process of doing that, I realized that I really like teaching a lot, and I really like teaching stuff that I didn't have to leave my room for. So the realistic reason of why I actually switched my major was I didn't want to leave my room and have to, if I had to do work. And looking back on it now with how the last year has gone, I'm kind of happy that I made that switch.
So just further talking about your major a little bit more. So computer science, it is a really big major, and it's really popular now, especially now. But computer science is pretty broad. So could you tell us a little bit more on like what your focus was in computer science and how that sort of transfers to your job now at Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Mm-hmm. So at a baseline, when you're looking at how computer science is as a major, there's always your core classes like data structures and algorithms, networking courses, operating systems, programming languages, and learning the baseline for syntax for programming languages. And all of that is like a base understanding that builds into a potential curriculum where you could become a mobile app developer or a web developer, or go along the lines of something that's a little bit more object-oriented intensive, where you have things like robotics. But it also includes, potential opportunities in systems and backgrounds with things like Salesforce, which is a customer relation management software that has a very different approach to coding and understanding how to apply that coding than you'd probably think the technical coding standards were for like mobile app or web app development. And so, yeah, that it really depends. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So you talked a lot about being a tutor and liking teaching, and what other avenues did you use to teach students? Do you still, obviously you still mentor the FRCT and 226, but do you still teach at other places? Did you teach while you were at UMich? Are you still going back there? How did that work out?
So when I was in high school, I started getting involved as a tutor through the Education Enrichment Center that's located in Troy. And so I worked there for a few years, and that kind of sparked my interest of working with students and working as a mentor. And so by the time I was a senior in high school, when I was president for the team, a lot of my focus during that year was how do we build curriculum so that students, when they join the team, can go through a boot camp and curriculum process, so that eventually they can get trained, so that they can eventually be very invested in the team and involved in the team. And so that started off with asking a couple of programming mentors to come and help out, and alumni to come back and help out over the years. And between that and between working with all the resources that were up and coming as well during that time, 2015 they switched to the Robo Rio, so there was a lot of different materials and opportunities to get involved with at that time and to use at that time. That tutoring aspect kind of always stuck with me. So I went from 226. I actually took a break from 226 because we have a 2-year period where we are basically said, hey, come back in 2 years so that there's a little bit of an age gap and a little bit more of maturity and understanding. So you get a little bit of experience with maybe a different team or a smaller team or a different structure. So I took a year off and worked with the Riveters over in Farmington Hills, 1481. And then I took another year off where I was just predominantly just focusing on volunteer work and getting engaged with the First in Michigan community. So I was volunteering as an MC. I would come back and ref at events. I would come back and judge at events for FTC level and for FLL level. And with all the coming back to the tutoring experiences, so a lot of, no matter where you go into, there's this essence of service, right? There's this essence of community service. And I always really felt drawn to that. And that's something that to this day that just hasn't, that spark of interest in being involved with community service and in general engagement hasn't really left for me.
Your experiences in college and even high school seem really rich, and especially with transitioning majors and finding what you're passionate about, a lot of it you seem to have talked to a lot of professors, but how did you really find these significant mentors in your life, and how do they still play a role in your career?
Mm-hmm. So at a high school level, I was fortunate to be in robotics where we had access to GM mentors. We had access to Mr. Al Marion, who was the woodshop teacher at the time. He was an incredible CAD mentor, and I actually spoke to him a couple of days ago, and he still works through his woodworking company, and he's still taking in contracts and helping to build houses and build extensions on houses and renovations. And so they were my biggest mentors and assets. Scott Duhame, Eddie Backley, Christian Emmer, and being able to talk to the alumni from the team like Allison and Jason Wyman, Allison Neisler, who's currently the head coach for 3538. They were my biggest influences in terms of getting involved with FIRST and getting involved with service in general. And looking back at all of those experiences and how they built into my career path. So like at a high school level, those were my biggest influences. But then moving to a college level, because I went to Dearborn and because Dearborn's community is a lot more engaging than people might think it is because it's a computer campus, I had direct access to professors. So, Dr. Baugh, Dr. Maxim, late Dr. Ellen Bogan, a lot of really awesome mentors at the university that really helped shape my career and shape my experiences during that time there.
So before you started, before you graduated and started working, obviously, did you pick up any internships while you were at UMich Dearborn? And did you get them from connections or mentors or anywhere like that? How did you obtain your internship?
So I got my first internship so I actually worked at Continental Automotive, which actually is right across the street from Troy High. So my summers would be work at Continental and then come over and help out in the shop, which was pretty nice because I could walk across the street without using my car. And the internship that I had at Continental kind of set a trend for me and in terms of like why I wanted to switch to computer science, because I didn't switch until after that internship. I was so when I applied, I was an ECE major, but I applied for a software internship position because the software internship position lined up a little bit more with what I wanted to do. And I was assigned to work with a few electrical engineers on on some of the testing teams over there. So I got to work on some of the base modules and that went into some of the Chrysler cars and some of the Ford cars and built out entire Python-based GUI using the C++ language stuff and that they were having that was used for their GUIs because they wanted to start switching over to Python for testing. And so I got to work a little bit more with that. But over my time at Continental, I came to this understanding that that was the only software intern within like 4 buildings. So it was kind of a weird understanding when that clicked and it kind of happened. But I had the opportunity to like talk with other people that were working at Continental, other interns, and help them with their projects. And that kind of kept on that trend of like I liked tutoring and I liked helping people. And that, like I said, that just never really left, no matter where I was at.
You seem to have enjoyed your internship experience a lot. So would you suggest a similar experience? Do you suggest college students try to get an internship if possible? And what were your major takeaways or the best parts of your internship that you would suggest to other people?
I would, if I had to do my internship experience again, I think personally I wouldn't change it because that really helped define a moment in my life of what major I was going to do and why I was going to change my major. But say I was looking at another internship, because after that I actually decided that I wanted to spend more time on campus and work on campus, and I worked about 4 or 5 jobs on campus, and I enjoyed that experience for my remaining years of college because in my thought process, I was like, I have an internship down. Finding a job isn't going to be as stressful now because I have internship experience in that aspect. I have that corporate experience. And so I spent a lot of time on my college campus. But coming back to the internship, I think the advice that I would give with when you're trying to go about obtaining that internship or co-op is start off with the basics. Like find some role models and mentors of people that you want to shape your career to follow after. Learn from their examples, talk to them, learn from their mistakes, especially because a lot of their mistakes can end up being learning lessons for you. And I think the biggest thing that I've always done in a lot of resume workshops that I've done is creating a goal resume. So figure out all the different types of resumes of all these different people and research about them, learn about them, see what they've done in like a 4-year span or a 2-year span, and then create a list of things that you want to try out, whether it's projects, whether it's learning languages, whether it's developing certain tasks, whether it's certifications. That's probably the first place that I would start. So build out a goal resume of projects and tasks that you want to accomplish. And then from there, you have a set standard of workable items that you essentially want to work towards. And once you do that, then it helps to fill up your resume with some more concrete, substantial information and experience. And if you're a coder, you can upload it on GitHub. If you're baseless in CAD, you can upload that on GrabCAD and make it public. And so there's a lot of different avenues towards getting research and towards being able to do your own personal projects and your own personal research opportunities that you can make for yourself. Once you work on those kinds of projects, like if you learn how to do proper documentation, there's a lot of tutorials on how to do that documentation. And there's a lot of websites that show like how professors do their documentation for research at universities that are public, or like National Science Foundation, like they have a lot of articles as well. So really reading into that, that's also another avenue to check out, because if you say you have a project and you wanted to build a robot and you wanted to work on documenting that process of building the robot, now that's a whole solid experience that you could always reflect back to when you're saying like, hi, I've done this and I've worked on like CAN, bus systems. I've worked on vision processing and general controls and other things that go into the robotics building process.
So after college, how did you end up at Blue Cross Blue Shield? Like, was there a specific process that you went through, or was it like through your internships? Did you get any connections, any offers? How did that process work out?
So I was actually still in college when I got the offer, and I started working at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And that was within my final semester, and it was through a recruiting company called Brooksource, where they actually had an Elevate program. And something that Brooksource was doing that was really unique was the fact that they had a Salesforce training program. And within my last couple weeks semester, like about my last semester of being at Dearborn, I discovered Salesforce and I saw that it was really up and coming, and I checked it out a couple times and I was like, this is really interesting. This is really cool. And then so I got into it. I got a couple badges done and started getting a lot of training on that done. And then between that and the projects and stuff that I was doing in class, I was kind of drawn between like, do I want to do Java? Do I want to do Salesforce? I kind of want to do both because they can be interrelatable. You work on like Java database and its backends, and then you can relate that to Salesforce and front ends for a lot of different places. And so Brooksource actually found me, and they reached out and said, hey, we see that you have this experience, and we also see that you're kind of involved with Salesforce. You might be perfect for this role at Blue Cross, where they're kind of doing something similar. And so when I went through the interviewing process, I got put into a program called the Elevate program, and that basically gave me a year to be hired on as a full-time employee at Blue Cross. And so during that time frame, I got put into a lot of seminars, and I got PMP certified, or not PMP certified, Scrum Master certified. And I got a couple other certifications in the process while I was being there. And eventually, when my 1 year came up, since it's a 1 year cycle for the hire on process, I've been hired at Blue Cross, and that's been a really good, solid experience since joining the company.
That sounds great. So at Blue Cross Blue Shield, what does your regular day-to-day look like? What's sort of your schedule? What major things do you get done?
Mm-hmm. So at Blue Cross, for me, it's been a standard 9 to 5, but there's always days that we have nightly deployments. So whether it's like a Thursday night or a Friday night, or sometimes depending on what we're deploying, it might even be like a Saturday morning at like 9 a.m. So it really depends. There's offshore meetings and things that will happen that are at different times of the day. But I think when I did start at Blue Cross was different than where I'm working at now. So I started before the pandemic, and that was a completely different experience than being here within the pandemic. So like waking up at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, getting dressed, getting everything ready, and then going to work and meeting with the team and having your daily stand up and going through that process, which compared to now, it's like I'm going to roll out of bed probably at like 8:30. Sometimes I have meetings a little bit earlier than that, so I'll definitely get up earlier. But most of my meetings don't start until 10, so I'll get up around like 8:30, 8:45-ish, log on, start working, going throughout my email, like clearing my inbox, responding to anything that I need to get done, and then I'll start developing on any of the tasks and user stories and task items that I actually have to get done for the day or for the week. And so we do everything in sprints by following the agile methodology process. And so for each sprint, we have certain deliverables that we have to deliver. And so a lot of my times, like a sprint is probably somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks. So for those 2 to 3 weeks, I may get like 5 user stories or something. And I'm told to get those things accomplished and get those things done so that I can start working on the next tasks that come up there.
So did your switch in major and your otherwise extensive background in technology that help you with work at Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think a lot of my experience in college, I was involved with a lot of organizations. So I was, and I'm still am involved with Datatodd, which is a professional engineering fraternity. So I serve currently as a regional director for the Great Lakes region. And then I was also involved with Formula SAE Electric. I was president for ACM. I was on student government and student activities board, e-board on campus. And a lot of those experiences helped shape how I am with organization, organizational structures, and also shaped how I handle budget and training structures. So being involved with all these organizations helped me get a handle in terms of how to structure trainings, how to structure programs that can, take somebody from a base mark of not knowing anything to making them a potential master of said field or said subgroup. And that was where a lot of my time got put into when I was in college, was developing out these organizations and getting involved with them on campus. And so with taking those experiences into the workforce, that organization understanding, that working on time management, task management, working on delivering tasks and stuff, it definitely transferred over there. And not only the technical aspects in terms of delivering tasks transferred, but the non-technical stuff. So being able to work and communicate with your team, especially with the pandemic, it's been a challenge for a lot of people. But communicating with the team and talking about, working through potential problems that you might have, and getting involved with DEI committees, diversity, equity, inclusion committees at the company as well, so that we can further enhance the understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the company while getting involved with community programs and community activities as well. And that requires a lot more public speaking and engagement than it does actually getting involved with like coding for that stuff, right? A lot of that you don't really do coding when it comes to DEI stuff, but it still applies when it comes to a lot of different fields and different aspects, because it's having a base understanding is very important of moving forward in your professional career.
Talking more about your organizational experience and how it helped you professionally now, like even after college, what could you tell us a little bit more about your current involvement in the Robot Garage, Theta Tau, the fraternity you were talking about, and First in Michigan?
Mm-hmm. So with the Robot Garage, my role is currently as like a STEM teacher. So over the course of I actually started my 1-year anniversary working there was about a year and a week ago. And so far, even though it's been mostly through the pandemic, it's been an incredible blast. So shout out to Sarah and Jonathan, but and Dan Kimura. And so my time at the Robot Garage has actually been very, very virtual. So we set up classes and the classes that I handle are and work with our students that are in like the first and second grade age group. So we have Lego sessions and we work through them and teach them about basic kinematics and how do motors work and how do basic electrical systems work in terms of like if a battery is connected to a motor, like can you turn it in a certain manner? Which way is it going to spin? What is friction? What are gear ratios? Things like that. We work with them at a young age so that by the time they get to 5th grade, 6th grade, and they look at joining their local FRISH program, like that might be something that they're heavily interested in getting involved with. So with the Robot Garage, I found it really, really exciting to work there just because I get to spend a lot more time with the younger generation because I already spend a lot of time with the high schoolers. And as much as I love that, it can be what's a good word for it? A different approach to deal with high schoolers and work with high school students than it is to deal and work with, elementary students that honestly, like they don't know the world as much. So there's a lot more of enthusiasm and energy that I go behind working with them. Similarly, working with, what were the other two areas that you asked about, if you don't mind me asking?
First in Michigan and Datatodd.
Mm-hmm. So with First in Michigan, a lot of it comes down to, just working with Hammerheads. I've been a volunteer coordinator. I've been working side by side with event coordinators. I've emceed for the Troy District competition for the FRC level since 2015, since I graduated. 2016, actually, I ref my freshman year of college, I ref. But other than that, it's been heavily involved with service, right? Coming back to that service aspect that I talked about earlier. So whether it's the team having projects that they're working on, whether it's, the Salvation Army drive or, building the robot for Salvation Army and getting engaged with that, or whether it is setting up Troy Youth Robotics and setting up programs with TYR. I think that's been where a lot of my time has gone into, and that's where some of the most impactful parts from that. And then with Datatodd, a lot of my experience with Datatodd has been along the lines of like program development and outreach and professional development. And the three pillars for Datatodd are brotherhood, professional development, and service. So brotherhood, profession, and service. And at the brotherhood aspect, we are a co-ed engineering fraternity, which, men, women, people that go by they, them pronouns can also join as well. And a lot of that aspect is more so along the lines of community engagement and community building, like building a network, building a connection amongst the people that are within the organization. When you look at the service aspect, there's numerous chapters. There's over 100 chapters across the country, and a lot of them are engaged with community outreach, and a lot of them are engaged with things like Adopt a Road or volunteering with FIRST robotics programs and other robotics programs. And moving from that, into professional development, there's a lot of career networking opportunities that are also available there that aren't necessarily available through colleges at a regular level, where it's a lot more personable and approachable. So with Datatodd, there's actually like a national Discord, and there's a lot of hands-on resources and virtual conferences that happen in terms of how we've been going through this pandemic. But even in regards to that, there's a lot of other opportunities for professional development and grants and educational opportunities that we also present there. And so I've been working a lot with that aspect of it.
So are there any specific skills that you learned during your time in robotics with Robot Garage, Datatodd, that you use now in your career or in your daily life? Like, are there any specific things that you really value from those experiences?
2 words: Google Calendar. I think anybody that knows me knows that I live and breathe through Google Calendar. Even if it comes down to hanging out with friends, like I'll probably schedule a Google Calendar event and send them an invite. And I think that time management aspect has always been something that stuck with me through my college experience and so forth. And because of that, I have been able to do the things that I'm able to do. And I think that I would be a lot more exhausted and tired if I didn't have a structured process of how I went about that. And so I would say definitely, focus on time management. When it comes to task management, learn to prioritize. So like learn your A, B, and C tasks. So A meaning like what's important and needs to be done right now. B is like what can wait for A to be done. And then C is like it's not due in the next 2 days. It can kind of be part of the backlog that you come to get to eventually as well. And so with that understanding, with how the skills and technical skills, I think the non-technical skills that I really started working and developing on with these organizations has been time management with Google Calendar, task management with like tools like Trello, Asana, even just a regular to-do list, and a lot of sticky notes. I got a lot of sticky notes right here that are all across my desk. And so like a lot of that really helped me in terms of setting some standards for how I approach other things in life, whether it's work or whether it's outside of work as well, or even, with robotics programs.
So going back a little bit to like the robotics programs and the service that you do for the community, something that you're doing now is hosting like FEC in your garage. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to give a shout out to Tammy and Gail for that. So I've been involved with some of the calls for it. Actually, right before this interview, I was actually on a call for all of the FTC event coordinator hosts and hosting hubs, and so I got to meet and connect with a lot of people through that network and this virtual process that we've been handling, where we're hosting virtual competitions. So just last week, the Novi program actually hosted a competition there, and that actually meant that even though like the judges and the event coordinators and stuff were working through them, all of the hubs and everything else were all across the state. So for that example, going back to what you said, there's actually a FTC field set up in my garage right now, and there's been teams that have been coming in and using it and recording and have been submitting their scores and submitting their videos so that they can ensure that they are getting the most out of their experience. And so with actually Stephen Hatfield from FTC 11717, the Circuit Breakers, has been a huge help in that aspect, as well as Jordan McMichael, who's an FRC mentor at 3538. Both of them have been really, really helpful in the aspect of helping me get this put together. So I got a field maybe like 10:30 the night or two before teams started coming in, and Jordan and Steve helped. They came at night. Steve helped clean out the garage, and then Jordan actually ended up staying up with me overnight so that we could set up the field so that teams could start using it the next day. And that's been kind of a wild experience with everything that's been going on. But honestly, that's what FIRST is about. It's about making those memories and making those experiences and making the most out of them and remembering them in the long run. So with the teams that we've been helping out with within the local area, so we've been having a few of the Troy teams and community-based teams come to the hub that's set up in my garage, and they've been using the field. And then in addition to that, we've also been I've been working with Gail to help deliver the Romies as well, the Romy robots. So if you don't know about the Romy robots, I think WPI, National Instruments, and Pololu put together a little microchip that basically lets you program a robot with the functionalities that are provided within the WPI library. So you could essentially, all the stuff that you do with the Robo Rio or the old C Rios that you do for the FRC robots, you could program it on this and test it out on this and make sure that everything is compiling right. And then you could deploy immediately onto an actual FRC robot, and it more than likely will drive immediately. And so working with First in Michigan, they partnered with Magna and got a large sponsorship. And so they have recently got Romy robots for every single team in the state of Michigan. And so for the last couple of weeks, I've had a box of about 60 of them sitting in my living room, and mentors have been coming in to safely pick them up and make sure that they can take that back to their teams for future learning environments and learning programs. So I'm just a hub. That's all I do. I don't do anything else.
Okay, so do you have any robotics advice? Do you have any career advice? Do you have any other kind of advice or just something you'd like to share with our viewers today?
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest advice that I can give, at least for the high school robotics students, is find a passion project. And then when you find a passion project, find a mentor that's willing to support that passion project and back your passion project up. Because having that backing and having that understanding and having that support can go a lot ways further when you have somebody that may have already had that experience to help guide your process. Because going back to what I said earlier, like when volunteers come back and when mentors come back, it's less about them getting something out of it and them providing something. So take advantage of the resources that you have while they're there.
Okay, thank you so much, Srini. It was really great hearing all this, and we're now going to be moving on to a few questions from our audience.
Okay, go for it.
So someone from the audience asked, what advice do you have for students who want to be involved with FIRST after college or during college?
So it depends on where you're at. So if you're, out in Maryland or somewhere, there's probably a couple teams that are actually in your vicinity. But on that note, like there's also a lot of volunteering opportunities. So even if you don't have enough time to volunteer and commit to working with the team regularly, there are some teams that are okay with you coming once every couple months and helping out. There's some teams that, may need you on a daily basis. So it really depends on the need of the team. But say you don't want to be a hands-on mentor and you want to just get involved in the community and volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers. I'm certain that there is actually open spots right now if people are interested in volunteering as judges and refs for competitions right now. So if you're interested, there's websites like firstinspires.org and other volunteering-based websites that you'd be able to find resources for so that you can get involved and join the FIRST community and as a volunteer. One of the biggest things with the FIRST community is that it's not just the K-12 age group, it's also after K-12, like you can get involved as a college student. There are teams that may be open to you getting involved with them even virtually over Discord or Slack or Zoom, and that way you can work with them virtually while they develop their program out. And I think that's something that's really cool is that as technology has developed over the last, how many ever years that we've been having, I think, robotics has been around for over 25 years here in like in our on Earth. But the technology has continued to grow along with robotics. So as motors get more and more efficient, right? Our resources get more and more efficient as resources are available and present themselves in a presentable manner to learn from. Like, we get access to that. And so I think that's a huge change just within the last 5 years, that the accessibility to resources and the ability to build a robot and get involved with the community has definitely gotten a lot more streamlined and has become a lot more practical to implement it in school systems, regardless of the socioeconomical backgrounds. And I think that's one of the coolest things about getting involved with FIRST, is that it doesn't really matter where you come from or what your background is. It's sport for the mind, and anybody can get involved with it.
Another audience member wanted to know, what was your favorite or most memorable competition as a 226 member?
Is that as a student or as alumni?
It could be either, I think.
Okay. As a student, I would say it would be my first Troy district competition, because I remember coming in on Wednesday after school ended and coming in and seeing that we had to set up an entire field and set the carpet and set the baseboards on the ground so that we can lay the carpet on top of that to avoid scratching up the gym. And so I'm really happy to have been working with a really good crew for the last 10 years to help set up 10 years to help set up the competition. So like David Brzezinski, Eddie Backley, Jason Joy, Hans Rogers have all been really fundamental in terms of my understanding of how to go about the process and, help to set up the event. So I think as a student, that was one of my, as a mentor, that was one of my more memorable moments. But as a mentor, I think it would probably be, what was it? I think it would be state championships, and it would be the year that we won chairman's for the first time at state championships a couple of years ago. And it wasn't that moment that was the most memorable moment, but it was the moment before that when the entire team felt very tense, and it was very, very nerve-wracking to hear like them going through the list and not really sure what exactly was about to happen. That was one of the most memorable moments, I think, looking back on that time frame. And I think because of that opportunity, it opened up a lot more doors for us so that we could get a lot more engaged in the local community as well as the local FIRST community as well. And I think that's been been one of my favorite parts after that process, is the amount of networking that's been able to be done after that to help people across the country.
That sounds great. So even going off more, I guess, your experience with FIRST in the past, an audience member asks, what is your plan for your future in FIRST? I'm looking at the next couple of years. What is your plan for your involvement?
So I plan on staying involved, right, with the Troy community, and I plan on staying involved with Troy Youth Robotics. And I just want to see it continue to grow. I think there's a lot of opportunities in terms of things that can happen within the Troy community, and I'd like to see that grow here and then expand out and impact a lot more of our community.
All right, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you so much, Srini, for joining us. It was really great having you on the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining the stream. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and come back on April 1st for our show with Eddie Backley, as Srini mentioned. He graduated from Albion College in 2012, and he is a senior DevOps engineer at StockX. We hope to see you then, and stay tuned.